So moving on, my number nine is Zoolander number two.
I think this is on a lot of people's not too fond of lists this
Yeah.
year. Hmm.
I really like the first Zoolander. I dare say it's a comedy classic. This film is not.
The reason it was a bad movie was because it was released at the wrong time. Now was not the time for that movie.
Well, I mean, that's certainly part of it. You know,
Hmm.
a sequel released like what, 15 years after the original. Like, who cares anymore?
Right,
Who
exactly.
cares? That's not necessarily like you could still make a funny movie based on something that's a little dated. But Zoolander 2 is under the false pretense that a never-ending parade of celebrity cameos count as jokes, but that's simply not true. I think what happened is that Ben Stiller went through his contacts list on his
Uh-huh.
phone
Yeah.
and got whoever he could to show up in the movie. It's like you've got like Susan Boyle and Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande and
Right.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Billy Zane and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Katy Perry and Susan Sarandon and like all of these celebrities showing up for 2 seconds, and he spent so much time doing that that I feel like he forgot to write a
Mhm.
script.
And you know what's
Approximately 20 minutes into Zoolander 2, I asked myself, why aren't I laughing? And the answer is because it's not funny.
Yeah. And when you compare that to something like Pop Star that made you laugh and you enjoyed it so much, it's almost like why bother with Zoolander too?
Well, I want to go back to Popstar just really quick,
Hmm.
because okay, not all of the jokes work, but what I admire about the film is that it has actual jokes. A lot of comedies nowadays, movies like oh, I don't know, like Sisters or Trainwreck or Office Christmas Party or pretty much any Melissa McCarthy movie. It's just the director getting a bunch of really funny comedians in a room and propping up the camera and saying, "Okay, go." And it's very improv heavy and it's a lot of riffing and there's no real focus to the scene, which can sometimes work. But Popstar has like jokes, some very clever and subtle and some, raunchy and over the top, but jokes nonetheless, jokes with a
Mm.
setup and a payoff. And a movie like Zoolander 2, where it's just like, hey, here's Ariana Grande with a ball gag in her mouth. Isn't that funny? Well, no, not really. Because in 25 years, when people, for some reason, some godforsaken reason, pick up Zoolander 2 and watch it, they're not going to know who that is, why that's funny. It's just a reference is not a joke.
Right.
So that's why Zoolander 2 was so profoundly unfunny to me, is because it's not, there's no setup and payoff. It's just, oh, here's Billy Zane showing up. So, anyway.